Hello there, everybody. Hope you've had a wonderful week. Welcome along to the last EFL betting show of the league season with OddsNow. Matt, I can't believe the league season's coming to an end. Isn't it madness?
Yeah, it's always a sad time. Even more sad for me, given that I don't know when Carlisle will next be mentioned on the EFL betting show, if ever again.
26, 27 anti-post, Matt. That's when
I
you
hope
can
so. Yeah, I hope so, Gab. Yeah. Sad. Obviously, been a sad season for me from a personal perspective, but I have loved doing the show with you, and glad that we've managed to unearth so many winners and plenty of losers as well. But I am going to have a go at going back through from when we started the show at the back end of last year and giving an overall profit and loss of the show, which will be good to see who's come out on top, because it is tricky to keep on top of alongside other things. But I think it'd be worthwhile.
I reckon my double chances might just sneak me in there. You never know.
Do you know what? I think I reckon you were well ahead until recently. I had a little bit. I've had a little bit of a good spell finishing the season with a flourish like Carlisle, but maybe it's going to be in vain like them as well.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
Maybe I had a Morecambe 1-0 against Swindon a few
that
weeks
was a
ago,
big one.
So that probably helped my chance a little bit.
That was a big one. Well, I'm going to try and go out swinging here. I've got my biggest priced pick of the season coming up in this show. So. Yeah, if you're watching the EFL betting show for the first time, welcome along. I should just say at this point that is obviously a show about betting, so please only view over 18s only. And please, if you are having a bet this weekend, as always, do so within your limits, gamble responsibly. And we're always here to offer sort of free insight and advice, but obviously betting does come with risks as well. So we'd like you to bear them in mind if you are having a punt on the football or anything else this weekend. And if you don't already, please do head over to OddsNow's X page, tagged in this show, and give us a little follow there. And you can also follow OddsNow on YouTube, where we have lots of betting insight going up for free on our YouTube channel as well. Well, on the EFL betting show, what we've done all season is myself and Gab have made 3 picks each from the upcoming slate of EFL fixtures and tried our best to unearth some value and some winners for you. So we're going to go through our picks from the Championship, League One and League Two, and discuss why we fancy them, have a little bit of debate, see if we agree. And at the end of the show, we'll try and work out our naps as well to send you with your card fully marked ahead of what is sadly the last round of full fixtures. We'll start in the Championship this week, Gab. I'm happy to go in first here. There's a few games, obviously, we get to this point in the season. It's been like this for a couple of weeks. Some games are far more consequential than others. And this one is a massive one because it has the Championship title on the line. I'm looking at Leeds' trip to Plymouth Argyle. Now, I did think at one point this was also going to have Plymouth's survival hopes on the line as well. But despite their plucky win at Preston last weekend, unfortunately, it's all but mathematically done for Argyle this season. They're going to need something like a 16-goal swing on the last day, which, look, we've seen some wild swings over the years. I mean, Bristol Rovers and Northampton come to mind, but this is beyond the realms of possibility, I'm afraid, particularly against a Leeds side who have the title in their hands. If they win at home park, they will be crowned champions. I think a lot of us have felt for a long time that Leeds are the best side in the Championship, but they did have a good old wobble around March time and looked like they may have even blown automatic promotion. But I think it's fair to say they have galloped towards the finish line in recent weeks, Leeds. They've been really, really good in their last few outings. And this game is a very interesting one because I think the pricing is, in the one sense, Leeds are 1-4 to win this game, no bigger than 1-4. That is massive favourites. Now, I think that is disrespectful somewhat to Plymouth, particularly given their record against the top 10 this season. They've only actually lost to Burnley out of all the sides in the top 10 this season. So these kind of games have certainly not been the problem for Plymouth. But as I say, it does have a different contextual feel to it, with Plymouth already relegated, Leeds desperately needing the win for the title. And I think that has been more than factored into the betting market here. Leeds prohibitively short now, as I say, at 1-4. Plymouth 11-1 for the home win. But where I am going to play this is the goal line. I want to get with overs here. Over 3.5 goals is 11-8. Now, this is where there's a bit of a contrast. I don't think the market has updated with the context in terms of the goal line. I think it definitely has in terms of the win market, where everyone's saying, well, Leeds are obviously going to win this. They need to. But I think traditionally, Plymouth have been very, very competitive at home against these big sides. And Leeds don't tend to smash teams. So I think we're getting a goal line that reflects that seasonal performance from both sides, where, Leeds just do the job, Plymouth keep things tight. We shouldn't expect goals. I don't know about that, actually. This is a Plymouth side now who, now they are relegated, are they going to still have that vigorous defensive mentality that has been serving them so well on occasion in the last few months? I don't know. I think that may be hard to replicate when you kind of know it's done and dusted. I wouldn't be surprised. I'm not expecting Plymouth to roll over by any stretch, don't get me wrong, but I'm expecting a slightly more open and attacking Argyle than we're perhaps used to seeing against top 10 sides. Now, I think that could go for or against them. I think they'll want to put on a show for these home fans who've been so fantastically loyal to them in this relegation season. And I think we might just see a little bit more attacking intent. And I think they can maybe take advantage of some Leeds early nerves, for example. But I do ultimately think I add in the Leeds firepower. The fact these two have met twice this season in the league and the FA Cup, and it's finished 3-0 and 4-1 to Leeds. And I do think that quotes of 11-8 about over 3.5 goals here, it's just suckering me in here. I don't see a reason for either of these two teams to keep it tight. Normally, if this game was being played in match day 30, I'd be thinking something like a 1-0 to Leeds. But on match day 46, in the circumstances, I do think goals are a strong possibility. And I think 11-8, it has suckered me in.
Yeah, I think if I'm looking at this from an angle of which price is better, I think I would rather, in terms of the win markets, I think I'd rather take 11-1 on Plymouth Argyle than 1-4 on Leeds.
Yeah.
Because you look at Plymouth Argyle's form at home to the top 10, you look at their recent form even, I think they might have won 3 of their last 5. I do feel like there's going to be an element of quite a good atmosphere on the final day, because I think Leeds visiting does tend to bring that out of the smaller clubs perhaps. And so they've got probably, weirdly, although they're going down, they've actually got 2 of the form strikers in the Championship from the last third of the season in Ryan Hardy and Mustafa Bundu. So I can see why you wouldn't maybe be as bold as to go with Argyle, because Leeds are, this is still Leeds, they're still on course for the title. But I think that going with a more neutral angle, like over 3.5 goals, I think makes a lot of sense, because Leeds have the ability to create chances from anywhere, but Argyle also have that firepower up top. So I can see why you've gone with that market.
And there's a lot of ways that this bet can land as well, isn't there? You're not reliant on, our Leeds going to be nervous, our Plymouth going to be outclassed. It doesn't really matter. It's just, to me, there's a real strong possibility that both teams play with even more openness in Leeds' case, and certainly in Plymouth's case, than we're used to seeing. And maybe the market, although it's caught up big time in the win prices, maybe hasn't quite caught up in the goals prices. So that's the thinking there. Just before we move on, Gab, I think I should pick your brains a little bit about Plymouth, because obviously facing the drop, they've gone down fighting. Really interested with Miron Muslic's comments in the last couple of days. Took the bold move, I think, of calling out the hierarchy at Plymouth, saying that he's working without a sporting director, without a recruitment team. He's worried about the 2 players you mentioned there, Bundu and Hardy, out of contract and going to be receiving offers from elsewhere. But then reaffirmed his love to the club and his commitment to the club. It felt like a good move to me, this, because I think what he's done there is, although he's had to sort of step back a little bit and tweet a bit of an apology of sorts, I think he knew what he was doing. I think he was kind of saying to the Argyle fans what they already suspect, that there's some problems at a backroom level within the club that need addressing. And I think it's kind of united the fans even more behind him. And I think it's put Simon Hallett in a very difficult position, because if he was really angry with Muslic's comments, which he may well have been, getting rid of him would just increase the anger in the Plymouth fan. So his hands are tied a little bit, but it's all out there for everyone to see now, isn't it? It's kind of like, there's problems here. They need addressing. Are you going to address them? So interesting. Yeah.
It's very funny, Matt, because if you'd asked me about Plymouth Argyle 2 years ago, I would say they're one of the best run clubs in the country.
Yeah, I would have as well.
Exactly. Yeah, I would have probably waxed lyrical about Andrew Parkinson, Neil Dewsnip and Jimmy Dickinson. And a couple of years on, Dewsnip's left. Jimmy Dickinson, I think people are saying head recruitment might be about to leave. Andrew Parkinson's come under a lot of criticism, and even Simon Hallett, who I would tend to think is actually a very honest owner, who does have the right intentions, who has got an awful lot right. And just, I think in the last couple of years, it's been a combination of bad decision making, but also the financial gulf between themselves and the rest of the championship. And I do have a bit of sympathy for that. And I think once they drop down to League One, I think there might be a bit more comfort at that level for Plymouth Argyle. So I'm not sure I'd necessarily, be out with the pitchforks as such. I think there's probably a bit for Plymouth Argyle to review over the summer, but hopefully Miron Muslic's comments draw a bit of attention to that and think, come on, get your act together, get people in place for planning for next season, because it does have to start now. You've got to get your strategy going. You've got to get the wheels in motion. So I think the next couple of weeks are going to be really important for Plymouth Argyle in terms of appointing key personnel off the field.
Yeah, I do as well. Going to be very interesting to see how they go in League One as well, and whether Muslic's sort of direct style will translate well into that division. Time will tell. Sticking in the Championship then, Gab, you're looking at Leeds' title rivals, Burnley here. Obviously facing a Millwall side that have been flirting with the playoffs, and you've put them up at some big prices to sneak into that top six. Looks like just going to fall short, but it's been a stellar effort, it must be said. From a Burnley perspective, obviously, I've said that the title is in Leeds' hands, but if there's any kind of slip up, Burnley will be there to take advantage, you would think. Now, backing Burnley to win 2-0 this season has been an absolute goldmine for punters. So why not try and go out with one more swing, I suppose. Burnley to win 2-0 against Millwall is your selection at 13-8. Tell us why.
I think 30 clean sheets this season with one game to spare is astonishing. I looked this up, and I think they've got the best defensive record in the history of English professional football, because when I looked at teams that have conceded as few as 15 goals in a season, you're looking at Preston North End. First of all, nobody's conceded fewer than 15 goals in a league season ever in terms of top four divisions. There was Preston North End, the Invincibles, I think, in 1888-89 season. We're going that far. I wasn't looking at every season.
Remember it well.
Yeah. And also the Chelsea Jose Mourinho side of 04-05. But Preston North End did it conceded 15 goals in 22 games, which is nowhere near the same that's less than half the 45 that Burnley have conceded 15 in. And obviously Chelsea was 38 games. So in terms of conceding 15 goals in 45 games and maybe 46, that is just absolutely astonishing, that defense.
It's far and away the best, isn't it? It's
unbelievable. And I think that rigidity, James Trafford in goal, the back four of Connor Roberts, CJ Egan-Riley, Maxime Estev, and then normally Bashir Humphreys, but more recently Lucas Perez. They've been unbelievable, and that organisation that Scott Parker has imposed, absolutely full credit to him. So, and again, it's just like, when you've got a bet like that that's worked so well over the course of the season, why go against it on the last day? So for me, Burnley to win 2-0, they're still going for the title. I'm going to go with that one at 13-8 as well. I think is a really nice price.
Yeah, I'm not going to waste time trying to argue with that. I mean, you've made the case for it. It has been so reliable. I suppose we might be getting a slightly bigger price because Millwall are one of the teams with something still to play for. But as much as I like Millwall, I would say that they're very much built on like rigidity and being solid. So whether they've got it in them to break down this Burnley side, not sure. So yeah, I mean, Millwall realistically, they're probably going to need a win to get in the playoffs. I mean, a point technically could do it, but when you look at the fixtures of the other and the goal difference as well, their goal difference is slightly worse. So I think they're going to just fall short, but they've made a really, really still good effort of it. Anyone that's not a regular listener of the show, Gab, earlier in the season put Millwall 80-1 to finish in the top six, and here they are in the final day, 1 point outside the top six. It's certainly been a great effort for the run for your money, if you will. But anyway, we'll dive into League One and press on. I'll go in first once again, and this is, I told you I was going out with a big swing. This is 35-1, and this is my biggest priced selection of the season. Let's hope it's a winning selection. It would certainly turn the tables a little bit, wouldn't it? Gab, I rang you about this one earlier in the week because I wanted to pick your brains on it. It concerns Gab's Birmingham City, obviously runaway champions, Centurions of League One, and they're taking on Cambridge, who are already relegated, of course. It's at the Abbey. And I wanted to ask Gab whether he thought the man in question would be starting. I'm talking about Jay Stansfield here. You might have heard of him, record signing in League One history. Not that it's been mentioned much this season, but yeah, he's been in and out of the side a little bit in recent weeks. Minutes a little bit limited, but despite all the noise around Stansfield, and that we hear about this fee every week, and you know whether he's done it to the level expected of him and stuff, but I just feel like he was in a no-win situation, Jay Stansfield, this season when he came to Birmingham. I mean, even if he'd hit 40 goals, people would have been saying, well, you should do, you know, you cost 15 million. So it literally couldn't win. But despite the, at times, sort of questioning and criticism of some of his output, he is only 2 goals off winning the Golden Boot here. He's 2 behind Charlie Kelman at Leyton Orient. And I just wonder if he comes into the starting lineup here, whether he could go and nick this Golden Boot and really put the icing on the cake of what's been a fantastic season for Birmingham. As I say, he's taking on an already relegated Cambridge side, a side that I would traditionally expect to be really well organised under Neil Harris and solid, but I'm not so sure about that now because obviously they're down. And some of Harris's comments, particularly after the loss to Burton, I think he said like something along the lines of we shouldn't be losing to Burton, which seemed to irk a few Burton fans. But yeah, but I mean that's the situation they're in, isn't it? And it really called out his players. So I just wonder with this end of season vibe here. It felt to me like a bit of a Harris saying, "Show me you want to be here, or I'll get rid of you," kind of thing. And you wonder how many of those players aren't going to be that looking forward to playing Birmingham with a massive away support, runaway champions on the final day. I do think this could be a potential landslide win for Birmingham. And yeah, adding in that context about Stansfield and being in the mix for the Golden Boot. I mean, he's around 8-1 for a brace, but I thought last day of the season, let's go all out, 35-1. For a hat trick. I'm going to chance it. So let's hope he starts. That's the first hurdle we've got to get over. And just to clarify, if you do have this bet on a first goal scorer or a hat trick and they don't start, the bet will be voided. So yeah, that is factored in. So let's hope.
If I lose a profit and loss competition on the basis of that, I'll be a very happy man.
Oh yeah, it works for everyone then, doesn't it?
Trophy for that one.
That's it, yeah. But like you said, I mean, Gab, you've probably got a little bit more insight on Jay Stansfield. I mean, sure. We hear so much noise about him because of the fee. And it's I think we associate more with Premier League players, you know, a fee weighing them down. It doesn't really normally happen in League One, does it? But do you think he has been impacted by the amount of noise around his transfer?
I don't know if it's that. I get the impression Jay Stansfield, I can't imagine he's somebody who overthinks things like that so much. I think the biggest issue is if you look at his biggest strength. I tell you what, I think it was Ryan Deeney, who's a great follow, by the way, for non-league content as well as Birmingham City.
Was that a hint for me there, Gab? Great follow for non-league content.
Absolutely, Matt. Get your research in. But Ryan Deeney, I think it was him, forgive me if it was somebody else, who revealed that out of Jay Stansfield's 10 open play goals, because he has scored a lot of penalties this season, 7 of them have come alongside Lukas Jutkiewicz or Lyndon Dykes. And bearing in mind neither Jutkiewicz or Dykes they've been far from guaranteed starters this season, I think it shows that he does his best work either when he's got loads of open ground and he can run in behind and use his pace and power, or he's got, in this instance, because that hasn't really been the case due to the way we play and due to the way opposition have played, not really got loads of space in behind, have you? So he's actually done better when he's had a physical striker alongside him or in the number 10 role, like Lyndon Dykes, say, who have got that physicality and can occupy defenders and knock it on for Stansfield to get on the end of things and carve teams open that way. And I think that weirdly, because the way the season's panned out, both from our stylistic point of view and the opposition, it's actually been hard for him to get in behind. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if he ended up scoring more goals in the Championship next season. Because,
yeah, I'd agree with that.
there'll be
I would
more
agree with that.
opportunities for him to get in behind and running beyond defences. So what I'd love to see on Saturday is Lyndon Dykes maybe playing in the number 10 role and being a kind of a sort of half target man, if you like, somebody who can do that job that I've described. And then if he does that, then there's a chance that Jay Stansfield might be able to get in beyond Michael Morrison, who's a veteran at this stage of his career, maybe not the quickest, so that, if they get into a foot race, that's no contest. So to kind of summarise, I don't think that all of the phases of play this season have really suited Stansfield, and so I still think he's done okay, pretty well to get to 19 goals and hopefully beyond. And maybe he can finish the season with a flourish. I think, is it 7-1 for a brace, and then if people want,
under normal circumstances, I'd be putting up the anytime price or the brace, but I think let's go bold, let's go big and bold. So yeah, it's 7-1 for a brace, 35-1 for a hat trick.
I don't mind the 35s, There you go.
Neither do I. I've backed it. So let's hope to bring some cheer to the final day.
Go on, Stano. We're with you. Go on.
Yeah. If he gets one after 10 minutes, I'll be tuning in, I think. Right. Okay. So let's go with your League One pick then, Gab. Another massive game in the context, this time of the playoff race, as Leyton Orient, well, they have it in their hands, don't they? They can seal that final playoff spot with a victory. They go to Huddersfield, who would have been hoping to be in the playoff mix themselves. But what a rotten end to the season for Huddersfield. 4 losses in their last 5. They're going to finish a good 11, 12 points off the playoffs. So, really, really disappointing campaign. A little bit of turmoil, obviously, with some key figures exiting the club as well. It's a surprise to see Huddersfield in this kind of mess, actually, to me. When you think about when I think about Huddersfield at League One level, I always think of being one of the big players. So it's a really, really disappointing campaign for them. I think in terms of away games and how away games go at this stage of the season, I think Orient will be pretty happy with having this as their must-win game, for all the reasons mentioned. You're going to back them to get the job done. The 5 to 6 best price at the moment, Leyton Orient, and a massive, massive game for them.
Well, who would have thought it? In November, Huddersfield won 2-0 at Leyton Orient. Late November this was, and I think they were something like 15 points better off than Orient. They were 5th. Orient were actually in the bottom 4 at that stage. So it shows how quickly things have turned around with this incredible run from Leyton Orient. And I think Richie Wellens, one of the managers of the season in League One, absolutely. I think with Huddersfield, they made a mistake getting rid of Michael Duff, because they've got a massive summer overhaul coming up. Because what happened was, the summer just gone, they had loads of players still under contract who were part of the relegation last season. And it basically meant that they were limited in how much they could do to overhaul the squad. And this summer they can do that. And I think I've seen with my own eyes how good a manager Michael Duff is in League One. I think they made a mistake not giving him the overhaul. And they basically brought in John Worthington thinking that he was going to oversee this playoff push, but it hasn't happened. They've won 2. I think they've lost all the other games they've had under him, about 10 games, 9 games, I think it is actually. And so I think Huddersfield are basically waiting for the summer. And they've lost their last 5, whereas Leyton Orient have actually won their last 5, which is what's put them in the driving seat. I think since roughly November, the only team that's taken more points than Leyton Orient have been Birmingham City, who are in a basically a league of their own. So I think for Leyton Orient to have averaged 2 points per game over the last 30 games this season, I think is incredibly impressive. I look at the form of Dan Ajayi, Charlie Kelman, top goal scorer, possibly. We'll
Hopefully
see.
not.
Hopefully not, yeah. And Jamie Donnelly as well. And each of them at different times produced some amazing form. Ethan Galbraith's had a wonderful season. Josh Keeling, goal, has kept a lot of clean sheets this year.
Good memorable cup tie with Man City as well.
Of course, yeah.
And
Allsop's only just poached him to the Golden Glove, so pipped him even. So I think, been a fantastic season for Leyton Orient. And whether it's them or Reading that get into the top 6, I think it'd be an incredible achievement for either set of reasons. But yeah, I fancy Leyton Orient to get the job done at Huddersfield.
I do as well. I mean, we've got our punters panel going live this afternoon, which if you head over to oddsnow.com this afternoon, we've got sort of all the big betting questions ahead of the weekend and tips from our expert panel, of which Gab and myself both feature. Expert, strong word. But yeah, so I think Scott, one of our panelists, mentioned it, that a lot of these games where there is a team who needs to win against a team that doesn't, a lot of money has come into the market early in the week. So a lot of these prices are short now, but Orient is one that I looked at it at 5 to 6 and thought I could still back them at 5 to 6 and feel pretty confident they're going to get the job done. I love Richie Wellens. I've banged the drum about Richie Wellens for a few years now. As a manager, I'd love to have seen him come in at Carlisle at different times. I think he's very, very capable at League Two and League One level. Really, really good man manager. Very, very good tactically. Delighted to see him doing so well. And I do think Orient, although they're going to have quite considerably the lowest points tally of the 4 playoff sides if they do get in, I think that they're still a dangerous team. A lot of match winners, like you mentioned, in there. So really looking forward to seeing them in the playoffs if they do get in, and hopefully for Gab's selection, they will. That's Leyton Orient to win Huddersfield and get a playoff place 5 to 6 with Betway is the best price there. Well, we'll go into the basement tier then, and unfortunately, this is the last time I mention Carlisle on the EFL betting show this season and potentially ever. Obviously, relegation confirmed last weekend at Cheltenham with a 3-2 loss, which, to be honest, was a game that one of those that becomes quite inconsequential when the news had filtered through that both Tranmere and Accrington were winning comfortably. I think it quite clearly got through to the players that it was dead and buried, and they ended up throwing men forward late on and losing. But it's been a really, really bittersweet few weeks for being a Carlisle fan, to be honest. They've finally started showing what they can do and maybe should have been doing, I think, with this side. They've picked up a lot of points in the last few weeks, but all in vain, unfortunately. And it means that relegation is confirmed, and they host Salford City at Brunton Park for the final league game of the season. We were talking a little bit about this one off air, Gab, and maybe like underestimating the power of playoff chasing team players, already relegated team in certain circumstances. You had a great stat. What was it about home teams?
Yes. So in the last 6 years of full EFL seasons, the team that played their last home game in the Football League of that era, the 12 occasions, there's been no defeats. I think it's 7 wins and 5 draws. And in a lot of those cases as well, the relegation was confirmed before the match. And I think there's something about playing your last Football League game at home and not quite knowing, when you'll be back. I think it brings out a sort of almost like a wake, if you like, a kind of, you're sort of mourning the season, but you're also celebrating what's happened in a weird way as well. So I think there might be a psychological aspect to that. But in Carlisle's case, I think it's really relevant because I think fans are desperate for Mark Hughes to stay on. I think the chances of that have increased by Rob Clarkson, the sporting director, actually leaving this week. I think there's a strong chance that Mark Hughes is very committed. I don't think he's going to be someone, it's not really about the money for him, is it? Because he's pretty much loads at this stage of his career. I think if he's felt like Carlisle are close to his heart and he wants to be part of that rebuild, and Carlisle fans are going to be all over the possibility of having Mark Hughes leading them into the National League, I think there's going to be an atmosphere where Carlisle fans are going to be singing, Mark Hughes, we want you to stay. He's going to be applauding the fans. I think there's going to be not a celebratory atmosphere, of course, because you'd just be relegated, and that's obviously a horrible thing. But I do feel like there's going to be a sort of a weirdly feel-good atmosphere at Brunton Park, and I've got a feeling that Salford City, I found them to be quite a flaky team, and I think they're going to struggle at the high-pressure moments, whereas I think Carlisle are going to win. So, do you know what? It wouldn't surprise me if Carlisle actually won by a couple of goals or something like that. Like
they're 4-1. So 4-1 to win the match.
I think that's a huge price.
It did tempt me, but I thought maybe I'm just letting heart rule head there. But look, I think a lot of what you say is valid there. I think a lot of Carlisle fans would probably struggle to get to the stage of saying it's there'll be any positivity there because the people are so downbeat about the season. But I definitely think there's something in with Mark Hughes, and there's been action, like you say, the sporting director's been removed in Rob Clarkson. I think there is more people certainly wanting Hughes to stay than not. I think they feel like he'll bring stability, which is something the club is desperate for at the moment. And I think that also the improved performances of recent weeks, regardless, that we all know, everybody knows that this Carlisle squad should have been on paper too good to go down. There's a lot of League Two quality there. So I don't think it's beyond the realms that Carlisle put in a similar level of performance to what they've produced in the last 6 weeks and give Salford a lot to think about. And I'm just to be clear, I'm not going to back the Carlisle win at 4-1. Instead, I'm going to back my old favourite Georgie Kelly to score any time. Obviously, at just shy of 4-1, 15-4 with Bet365. Georgie Kelly has scored 5 goals in 5 games since returning to the side. He scored again against Cheltenham last weekend, and we saw this price contract for a couple of weeks, and I left it alone, but bizarrely, it's come back out, and I just think there's no real reason for that. I get why Carlisle's price might be big because people are thinking, oh, they're relegated. But when you're an informed striker and you've scored 5 in 5, you're still going out there wanting to score a goal, aren't you? And there's no chance of him not playing. You know, Mark Hughes has built the team around him since he became available again. I'm sure he's desperately hoping to retain him. And I'm sure a few clubs will be having a little look at him after 5 in 5, you know. So
just the final point as well. I completely agree with you on Georgie Kelly. He's finished the season in brilliant form. I just want to I told you this off air. I want to make a sort of final comparison. I know it's a little bit comparing one random game to another, but I remember when Rafa Benitez took charge of Newcastle in the 15-16 season, and he gave them a much better chance of staying up. They just went down before the final day. But then on the final day, they beat Tottenham Hotspur 5-1, I think it was. And people like Moussa Sissoko had a brilliant game that day. And it was like the fans were, Rafa Benitez staying hadn't been confirmed, but fans were desperate for him to stay. And I do see a certain parallel that you could draw if you wanted to think a bit more outside the box with this one, where there's a similarity in that, you know, you got this high profile manager who's had a positive impact and the fans really want them to stay for the next season in the division below. And I just have a feeling it could play out in a similar way. So I
think it's an interesting, it's certainly an interesting angle. I'm sure because you'll appreciate it's such an emotional situation. Some fans feel really, really negative about it all. Yeah. Some are a little bit more philosophical about things. I think there is a general acceptance that Hughes has done really well to galvanize and make a connection with the fan base, which is something Mike Williamson never did. For that reason alone, I think there'll be a warm reception towards Hughes, and I do think that could translate into a good performance. Which, and as I've hinted a couple of times, I'm not as strong on Salford as a lot of people. A lot of people looking at this is like, oh, Salford will definitely get the job done. I'm not sure I'd trust Salford at the best of times. You've described them as flaky. I think that is the right word. When they're on it, they're on it. But I don't know if I back them if they face adversity to be able to turn it round. If Carlisle score first, do Salford have it in them to dig it up and turn it round? I don't think so personally. Yeah. So I think the 4-1 will tempt a few. A late money maybe, and Georgie Kelly will be the selection to go out with 6 in 6. And
what about Georgie Kelly to score and Carlisle to win? I'd love to know what the odds are on that one.
Well, while you're explaining to us your League Two pick, I'll get that calculated eventually. But let's go over to you, Gab, to round things off then in League Two. You're actually at this game, you're telling me, off there. And this is a massive game as well. Playoff hopes of both teams on the line. It looks like a straight shootout, to be honest. Grimsby to facing Wimbledon. You're going to back the home side to get over the line. Someone that I think you've got a bit of a soft spot for Grimsby as well. Another team I think you speak very fondly of, certainly of David Artell as well. You think they're going to get over the line and get this playoff spot? Tell us why.
I think so. I think the fact that the onus is on them to win is significant, because whereas their visitors, Wimbledon, can get in with a draw, I think that can be a dangerous mentality, because it can contribute to this what we have we hold thing. And Wimbledon have struggled for goals recently as well. Matty Stevens, they'd relied a lot on him for much of the season, and he hasn't, and his goals have dried up, and therefore The other factor is they've relied very heavily on Omar Bajil to be that target man presence. And because they've not had anyone else who can do that, because the likes of Joe Pigott and Josh Kelly and Stevens are different types of strikers, Bajil's had to start, and therefore he's got a bit jaded perhaps towards the end of the season and maybe not as effective. And so, people like Josh Nerfill, who had a brilliant season overall, but second half of the season he's been doubled up on, and maybe somebody like James Tilley, the other wing back, hasn't been able to do the same job to keep opponents guessing. So all these sorts of things make me think Wimbledon running out of steam at the wrong time. Now, Grimsby, they are with themselves winless in 4, but they've also got into 2-goal leads in a couple of those games away at Harrogate and away at Port Vale as well. So it shows they're getting into good positions. They've also, they had one run previously of 5 without a win, but otherwise I don't think they'd previously had a run of more than 3 games without a win. So they're pretty consistent in the sense that they've always been between, I don't know, 6th and 10th pretty much all season. So they've been pretty steady under David Artell in terms of challenging for the playoffs. I think that the core of Cameron McJanet, really good spot from Ireland, Denver Hume, who they retained for this season, George McEachran, their playmaker, Evan Corey in midfield's come on a lot, Kieran Green especially, full of running, and then they got Danny Rose up top, who's got into double figures for the goals column, and Jason Svanthorpe. I'm going through the whole team now, aren't I? But I'm very sweet on Grimsby is the long and the short of it. I think they play some good football. I think they've had a really developmental campaign, and I've got a feeling they're going to finish it off by booking a playoff spot.
Yeah, this is a classic case of whoever does miss out on the playoffs out of these two, they're going to be bitterly disappointed, aren't they? Because there's been, it's been, I think we've said this a couple of times this season, it's been a very open League Two. I don't want to say a poor League Two because I think that's a discredit to the teams that have gone up, but certainly there hasn't been the sort of runaway powerhouses that we've seen in previous years. And it does feel like an opportunity. I think whoever gets up through these playoffs have taken an opportunity that maybe won't be there for a couple more seasons. We'll see. But yeah, okay. So Gab is back in Grimsby there. I got you that Georgie Kelly price as well. Georgie Kelly to score, Carlisle to win is 15-2 with Bet Victor. So if you do want to go more ambitious like Gab, let's go for that one. We're going to summarise our best picks now. Gab, I don't know whose graphic you want to bring up first. Shall we go with?
Sure.
Me?
I'll go with yours, things you've gone first.
Yeah, okay. So, yeah, Leeds versus Plymouth, over 3.5 goals. I do think that the context of the game might just give us a little edge there. The big swinger is Jay Stansfield to score a hat-trick and to nick the golden boot off Charlie Kelman on the last day, 35-1 with Betfair, and Georgie Kelly to send Carlisle down with at least something to mildly cheer anytime against Salford is just shy of 4-1 there. My favourite bet, I probably have to say, is Leeds Plymouth goals. I do really think that the touch paper will light there one way or the other. I think Plymouth being that little bit more open than we're used to seeing under Miran Muslic might just play into making it for an entertaining game. I'd have that a little bit closer to even money. Gab, which one do you like of these?
I'm going to go with Jay Stansfield to score the hat trick. I'm going to go with it.
You're getting behind it. I've tugged the heartstrings.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
I've gone heart over head with this one.
35-1 nap there for Gab. Yeah, I love that.
Go on, it's going to happen.
Yeah, let's have a look at Gab's selections then. So you've got Burnley win 2-0 against Millwall, 13-8. Leyton Orient to win at Huddersfield, 5-6. Grimsby to beat Wimbledon, 7-4. I'll ask you for your nap. I'll be honest, I really like the top two. I'm not quite as sure on Grimsby as you, but I respect your reasoning. And the price is attractive. But yeah, I think I really like the top two, and I'd have to say out the prices, Burnley win 2-0. It's been so good to bettors this year, hasn't it? And why not go for it again?
Yeah, I am torn between the top two, but I would I'm going to go with Burnley. They've been so solid all season. At home, they've only dropped points once since January. I think they might have drawn at home to West Brom, but other than that, they've won all their home games and obviously setting a clean sheet record with some aplomb. So, I don't, why change a winning thing? 13-8, Burnley win 2-0.
Yeah. Okay. So Gab's nap for the weekend then is Burnley to win to 0 against Millwall, 13-8. Mine is Leeds and over 3.5 goals. Like I say, the punters panel will be going live this afternoon with insight from myself and Gab on all sorts on there. If you've not checked it out before, please do. I think you'll really enjoy it. We've got a little bit of nap of the weekend, lay of the weekend, goal scorer fancies, and a few topical things thrown in for good measure as well. So thanks so much for everyone that has tuned in to the EFL betting show this season. We really do appreciate the support. It's been a pleasure to share the stage with Gab and pick his brains on all things EFL. We're hoping to be back next season, so you won't have too long to wait. And we certainly have some playoff plans roughly in place. We're just working out exactly what they're going to be. I'm looking to bring a star panel together to talk all things playoffs. So keep your eyes peeled. And the best way you could do that is by giving OddsNow a follow on X. The account is in the description. Gab, thanks so much for your time and efforts this season. It's been a blast. Let's hope we can sign off with a few winners.
Go on, Stano.
Cheers, everyone. Good luck this weekend, and see you again soon.
Absolutely.